Hello and welcome to the big story here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. This is where we get to discuss key issues shaping our economy and our nation at large. My name is Elizabeth Musa. Today we will be exploring the importance of the informal sector to Sub-Saharan Africa and why it should be a focus point. Sub-Saharan Africa is a region of the African continent that lies south of the Sahara, comprising the Central Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, and West Africa. Countries within this region, including Nigeria, face and share peculiar challenges, amongst which are economic instability, poor healthcare delivery, environmental degradation, political instability and governance, conflict and displacement, infrastructural deficiencies, high level illiteracy, etc. So many of these challenges. But aside from these challenges, the majority of the population in this region fall within the informal economy, lacking access to finance and trade facilitation, a situation that continues to worsen their level of poverty. Yet, people in this category constitute nearly 80% of the population of Sub-Saharan Africa. In our big story today, we focus on why governments in this region should focus and prioritize the development of the informal sector. And to discuss this with me this morning, we've got joining us Mr. Oluwatobi Ojabello, BusinessDay senior analyst. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Right. Let me start by asking you to sort of lay a foundation for us this morning. For the sake of our audience, what really constitutes the informal sector in an economy, and why is it called the informal sector?
Thank you very much. You see, when we talk about informal sector, we are talking about an unregulated, unofficial market. Economic activities that are not officially regulated by government or protected by government. Such activities are classified as informal. So people call them informal because that economy or sector does not operate in the legal framework or any institutions. They are not guided by any laws. They are not registered. So they don't have any contractual terms. So that is why people call them informal economy. So in my own research, I call it overlooked economy. An economy that government did not recognize. So that is just the basic conceptual meaning of informal sector and economy. And when you look at it critically, informal sector people constitutes more than 90% of employment. You understand? Now, a sector that employ, according to International Labour Organization, that sector employed around 94.6% of Nigerian population. And in Sub-Saharan Africa, on average, over 80% employment in Sub-Saharan Africa. But unfortunately, this market have been overlooked by the government. And whenever government make policy, they consider only 5.6%. Those people that falls in the formal sector. Then what happens to those people that falls in informal? They bear the brunt of any government policy. Thank you.
So what are some of these jobs that we can find in the informal sector?
Yes, there are categories of jobs in the informal sector. So the vendors, the artisans, the cart pushers. No, I don't know if you know a place in Lagos they called Okeane in Lagos where they sell clothes.
I've heard of it.
You've heard of a particular place in Yaba where they sell clothes.
Yes.
All these constitute the Tegro show constitute informal sector. Now when you go to Ladipo where they sell parts, that's informal sector. Now when you go to Onitsha, the core market in Onitsha where you see people buying, selling there in the market, informal sector.
Okay,
So
Aba.
the bar when you go to K2, where the pepper seller are, the meat seller are, that's informal sector. So and some transport, when you are going now, you will see park, you board the bus, and so all this makes an informal sector.
All right. So what we see in the sub-Saharan countries is a greater percentage of the population actually playing in the informal sector segment. Is there a reason why? Is there something that we can trace to the reason why this is so?
Yes. It is either you work in formal or informal. You cannot be in between. Someone asked me a question, was it not 3 days ago? Why, based on an article that I wrote. Ojabello, what do you really mean by informal? What of a full housewife? What sector can you categorize a full housewife?
That should be informal.
I told the person it's informal. He now asked me, what makes informal? Is there any rules, regulations? Is there any contractual terms? Full housewife. So when we look at it technically, we look at the sector. Why do people move to informal ahead of formal? Because of accessibility. That's just major factor that distinguish formal and informal. To get being employed in BusinessDay, you have to follow the normal procedure. Firstly, you apply, send your CV with your credentials to prove to them you have the capacity to work. But in the informal sector, I don't need to send any CV. I can just wake up one day and go to where they are selling food. That place, can I help you to wash your plate? So when because I need to survive. We call it economic of survival, informal sector. Okay, if you can wash my plate, you are going to work with us for 7 hours. So we pay you 3,500 naira per day. You want to survive. You get it? So as a result, because you don't have any certification, but it is just accessibility. I can work. It does not require any technical education. I don't need to know how to speak English. Once I can just communicate in such a way that you will understand. They don't measure the way I dress. Once I'm not constituting user with the way I dress, so I will be employed. In BusinessDay, I cannot just come one day and put on a boxer. I cannot come and put on a short. But in some informal sector, all dressing codes are allowed. So far, it is not repugnant to the public hearing or to the owner of the business. So as a result of that, all these factors attract a lot of people to go to that sector.
And that's what has attracted so many people in Sub-Saharan Africa to that sector. Exactly. All right. Now, we also know that a larger percentage of populations in Sub-Saharan African countries fall, just like you said, within the sector. But the wealth is concentrated in the hands of the smaller percentage of the formal sector. Okay. I don't know if you agree with that. And it will seem ironical because if they have this accessibility, if it has this much, perks to it, why do we see then that the people with the wealth, the more wealthy ones, happen to be the ones in the formal sector? You might disagree with that. It's okay.
Yeah, I agree with you, but that is what we call in economics. That's what we call paradox of wealth concentration. It sounds ironical, but when you look at it, you cannot be better than a producer.
Okay, explain.
Yes, a retailer cannot be better than Dangote that produces. So informal sector, people that operate in informal sector depends on the production at the formal sector. Now, the formal sector have access to capital, access to advanced technology they are going to use in production. Majority of people that works in the informal sector are majority the retailers. Why you see some wholesalers there? They are not producers. Although we may have some entity that are not registered that produce. But what are the percentage of those people that does not produce in informal? They are like 75% according to the recent analysis of Money Points. Okay. So there is no way the wealth will not be concentrated. In BusinessDay, for example, We have vendors that dispatch our papers.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The papers are produced in business day. It's just like those vendors that go from one place to the other to sell those papers. Can they be better than the owner of business?
Absolutely not.
So it means wealth are concentrated in the hands of the few. Informal depends on formal to take resources from the formal and distribute.
That's capitalism.
That's just it.
All right, and also tell us why you think why we seem to be struggling. You know, like Nigeria. We use Nigeria as an example of a reflection of the struggle of the informal sector. How can we bridge this gap? Because what you mentioned is the fact that you can't be better than the producer.
Entirely.
So how do we bridge this gap? Because if we have more people, because at the end of the day, what this leads us to is we see that we are falling into deeper levels of poverty.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. You see, when you look at in Ghana, and you look at what is happening in Togo, you look at what is happening in Zimbabwe, what is happening in Zambia. Now you will see what's happening in South Africa. Majority of youth falls in the informal sector, and these people that falls in the informal sector majority are falls within the age of 18 to 34. Right. And these people are not happy. Why? Because when government make policy, the policy affect the sector. But government did not make policy that lift the operators in that sector. Now, there was an article I wrote. I found a statement on X Andrew. The woman said, when price goes up, I buy less. But unfortunately, the rent, my house rent, remain the same. Who will help me to augment that? My children's school fee remain the same. Who will do that for me? Where I used to sell my poco goods, the rent increases. Who will do that for me? But government policy come in terms of macroeconomic policy. They come with fiscal policy telling you government expenditure and government tax. That's why you see people in Nigeria, they are not happy. People are shouting, what is going on? If you like, let's just do in some ways. Even if the GDP increases, I don't care. What I care is to put food on my table. So how can you be telling me statistical indices that does not improve my life? So when you say you want to bridge gap between the formal and the informal, you can bridge the gap. Yes, it is possible to bridge the gap, but we are not bridging the gap to make informal to be formal. The only thing is that we regularize and we plan for those people that are there, so that if government policy shocks come, they could survive.
And how do we regularize?
Thank you very much. You see, I wrote a paper in 2016. Then I was going for a program at Quebec. So yeah, in Montreal, in Canada. So I wrote, the title of that research paper was Tax Spend, Spend Tax. Tax Spend, Spend Tax. Fiscal neutrality and fiscal synchronization. Now, what does that mean? It means government revenue depends on government expenditure. Government expenditure depends on government revenue. Both government expenditure and revenue have to come together to achieve stability, and both can operate in an isolation. That's just what the topic is all about. So among my recommendation at the end of that study, not to waste our time, but government need to capture the informal sector. Although there's some opposition to the informal sector, such as Operation Mutuzvina in Zimbabwe 2005. He said, get rid of the trash.
And what's the trash?
The trash informal sector. So instead of government to use a policy that will soften, improve the life of those people, they come with a rigid policy. All in the sake of wants to clean the environment. So in that my write-up, I classify informal sector into three. We have the large, we have the medium, and we have the small. Large can be classified as the importer and exporter who at Alaba. Those people who sell clothes at Okeani. I will not mention the name of one Alaja there. I think it was in 2018 when I helped her to do store count. Elizabeth, can you guess the value of her stock?
I know it's going to billions.
It's billions.
Because I know that the people in the ones in Lagos market, those ones are
just billions. Just billions. You know, when I look at it, say, okay, when government classify this, these people will not come. Government need to incentivize them to register.
Okay.
So you have to let them see the basis of registering.
Registering for what?
To formalize.
Okay.
So that is the only way we can bridge that gap is to formalize the informal sector.
Okay.
And how do you formalize the informal sector? The first thing is categorization. Someone that is selling noodles.
You were going to actually categorize them. You have started with the first one, the large one.
I'm going.
Okay.
Someone that is selling noodles on your street. That will buy one pack of noodles, 8,500.
Yes, and then some.
And buy a crate of egg. 6,000 naira. Buy atagungun that we call grand pepper. Buy all those things. Start selling for you. You want to be taxing that person. You want that person to formalize. And he has 3 children. Unfortunately, she married a responsible man. So what are we saying? And there's someone at Okeani whose stock value is over 2 billion. So government have to start from the large. Factor the large into the model. Encourage them by giving more access to loan and training. So when they give them more training, people that works in that large will be more exposed. They will have HMO. They have access to pensions. You and check the life of pepper seller at the end of the day. Those people that fail to send their children to school, they become miserable at the age of 70. They become beggars. So government need to factor. There's no way poverty in Africa will reduce if you did not recognize that sector that employ over 90%. So you did not recognize them. And these are the people that employ 90%. And you are saying Africans are moving to Europe. They will stay. Sit down there, if I'm going to fail you. They will leave. Say Africans are moving to America. Why wouldn't they leave? The informal sector that employ 90%. You know what they call 90%?
That's
so until we look for a way of taking, you see, although some countries in Africa are doing it already, such as Rwanda, they introduced what we call free flat fee model that ensure that even you can contribute 10 naira using Nigerian currency just for health. We have countries like Kenya, they introduced what we call M-Pesa.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
You know, those are the things. We are not saying those measures are perfect, but it shows that there is a policy shift that they tend to recognize. So that's why poverty in Africa will continue to increase unless we look into what is really happening here. What can we do to ensure that? I think there was a time, was it not 2016? They introduced what we call micro insurance.
I remember.
How many people heard about micro insurance again?
So you think that there should be more awareness?
More awareness. Let these people know.
That means the insurance companies need to.
They need to do that.
Better.
But they cannot do it alone.
They need the help of the government.
They need the help of the government. And also we that are in the media house, we need to write more about that.
Yes, I was going to say that. I think the role of the media in all of this cannot be underemphasized.
Exactly.
We need to actually do more because people are reading, people are coming on social media, all of that. And then instead of people getting misinformed or not disinformed, we have the role as the mainstream media to actually be the voice that they need to hear. But what do you think is the reason why we have this challenge? Why this challenge is really pronounced in Sub-Saharan Africa? The challenge of the informal sector.
You see, there was a time I was, you know what they call self-reflection.
Absolutely.
I was just ruminating about the chronicle events, about our continent, I was asking myself, is it that Africa should accept its fate of poverty?
Should we?
Yes, and when I look at the data from 1960 to 1998, Nigerian GDP per capita was greater than that of China. But unfortunately, any economic shocks, when I mean shock, unplanned policies from the international or locally dwindle our economy. Then Nigeria start all over again. Meaning that most of our growth are not sustainable. That's why whenever there is shocks with force, below normal, they will start struggling. So when you look at, it is more pronounced in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa per se, because of the level of unemployment in Sub-Saharan Africa. A lot of people will point fingers to the colonial masters. We cannot remove the fact that colonial master has effect, but the question is since when? They've left Nigeria since 1960.
No, but they've left, but have they really left?
And the question is this. You are married, but you did not stop going to your father's house. There's no way your father will not influence some of your decisions. Because there's no way your mom will not ask you some of those challenges you are facing in your husband's house. And there's no way before you know you start talking about it. Before you know they give you some advice.
But let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Hold that thought. So if you use the analogy of being married,
exactly,
not stopping,
going to your father's house.
But what if you were married?
Good.
Excuse me. And I'm married, but I had an agreement on, just because I wasn't fully on my feet.
Okay.
So I have to sort of live in my father's house, or my dad already like built a house.
Okay.
And then that's where I'm living.
Okay.
Because that was the agreement, or because my dad is so influential.
Okay.
And then I have this apartment, and then that's where I'm living. Or because I'm trying to use it in the analogy of the colonial masters and some of the things, because they've left footprint. It's like, oh, we've left you, but you're still tied to my apron string, sort of. So those are the things that are happening. And so when you use the analogy of being married, I have to use that because, oh, I'm married, but my dad says, oh, this is this house, I'm going to give you and your husband, and that's where I'm living. And that's what's happening with when we talk about the colonial masters. They have left, like buildings, like all sort of things that somehow we are tied to them. Or is it that we can choose to say, you know what, we are not?
Thank you very much. Let me quickly remind you of using that the same analogy. There's what we call Fiscal Responsibility Act. Okay. When a man when you lost your fiscal responsibility, then your wife's parents will dictate to. So when the African country, Africa is a continent with enormous underneath resources. Steve Harvey, that guy.
Absolutely, I know.
I read he made a comment on LinkedIn. Said Africa should be the greatest in the world. Africa does not need the help of any country. Africa does not need to import cars. Africa does not need to buy consumable goods from any country. Why? Because Africa have all this. I agree with him in some aspects, but I do not agree in some aspects.
Okay.
Why? Because you need some importation, but that importation should be production. You need import for production, not import for consumption. So when he was saying, when he said you need import for production, you need some machineries that you cannot
that's what
produce.
You mean.
Yes, that's an import for production. So when you bring in some machineries, you use it to transform the raw materials you have into finished goods.
But can't we make those machineries here?
The question is technical know-how. Do you have the technical knowledge?
But there are lots of people traveling every time, getting international exposure that know how to do these things. Some of the best hands that we have outside of the country. We talk about the brain drain in Africa all of the time, brain drain in Nigeria. Okay. Some of the best hands we have, they are working for companies and they are creating there. So are we saying that those same people cannot come here and do all of this creation?
They can, but the question is, what can you use to influence their decision to repatriate? Have you forgotten that guy that came from Germany for after 30 years? That came and do farming in Nigeria and was killed? Do you remember?
Mm.
So there's a lot of reasons why some people keep their knowledge there. So now someone who have that knowledge, okay, let me go back to my country, and the bureaucratic system, the political sentiment, all these are the factors that impaired Nigerians not to come and bridge the gap, knowledge gap here. That's just it.
And but then speaking of the gap, we do have people that are creating. When you talk about production, we do have people that are creating. But there's also a problem that an average Nigerian person has, where you will believe that once it's Nigerian made, then it's inferior. So I don't want to mention names. We have vehicles that, in fact, let me mention, we have the likes of Innocent and the likes of even the Saglev vehicles.
Okay.
We see that people will rather, if I've seen competitions where they get to give them an Innocent vehicle, and then people will be like, it's even like no level. Oh. So how do we correct? Is there really any hope for us?
Yes, there is, but there's what we call consumer sentiment.
Okay.
How do I mean? Sometimes you go for products not because you like the product. You are buying the product in order to showcase that you have the financial muscle. Are you with me? I will tell you the technical gap in Innocent strategy. One of the technical gap in Innocent strategy is that it came into the market not using market penetration strategy.
All right.
You cannot just walk into the. Do you know how much they sell a new vehicle? Innocent one a car.
Yeah, tell me.
So an average car in Innocent is considering the current economy now, where the volatility has dwindled the value of naira, can never less than 20 million naira. Okay. Why? Because the used car in Nigeria now, all these car 2010 car 205 car, the used one that sold around 11 million, 12 million. We are talking about the brand new one. So Innocent needs to understand. I want to start producing in Nigeria. Who are my targeted customers? You and I are working. Can we afford to buy Innocent, even though with this, if they increase our salary by 10% yearly?
That's laughable.
So what are you saying? So these are just basic things.
So are you saying
Nigerians are not condemning Nigerians' products.
Okay.
But the economic situation, the environment is not congenial. The cost of operation is high. As a result of that, production in Nigeria that will match the standard of goods you are bringing from Europe. Are you with me? The production in Nigeria is higher. As a result of that, you have to dump Nigerian products and you go for European products.
But then, aren't we also talking about the cost of importation as well? So when you're talking about the fact that, the cost of production is high in Nigeria, and then maybe because of that, people have to still go. I do agree with you. But there's also the fact that sometimes just some of those products, then there's the cost of importation and all of that add to the cost. The other day, my friend was trying to, the car she was getting in, and just clearing it for it to get here.
Exactly.
I think she added like an extra 3 to 4 M minus the car itself.
The question is.
So those are also some things.
You are right. There's what we call make or buy decision.
Okay.
In financial management, we call it make or buy. Should I make or I buy? You look at the cost analysis. That's what Trump is fighting for. Trade protectionism. Why does iPhone prefer to go and produce in China? Because of cheap labor. Okay. Now, what is the cost of producing in US?
It's more expensive.
If the cost of producing in US is $9, and the cost of producing in China is $3, importation cost is $2. The cost of producing in US is $9. The cost of producing in China is $3. Importation cost is $2. So I have $5 to bring it to US. Then I can be a market leader by selling at a lower price than other competitors. So government needs to work on creating an enabling environment where the operation costs will be at minimal to encourage us. Okay, look at the way people wear Ankara now. You can see the way we use Ankara for Nekaboga now. People use,
Yes,
you know,
and it's
I have to.
It's stunning.
I bought two. Each one for 45,000 naira. Just to tell you.
Too much?
No, it's not. No,
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
If I'm to buy joggers, I'm going to buy joggers, Adidas up and down. I'm going to spend like 100 or 120,000 naira. And I saw one Ankara that they would design for you very well. Then I give me a white round neck. Do you get it? 45,000 naira. Very simple and very smart.
But that's the affordable one, because most of the Nigerian designers that we have now are ridiculously expensive. Because I was going to come back to your comment on, or maybe the enabling environment and all of that. But I thought about it that why then do we have, quote, the Aba made being very cheap, and they are actually very good products if you ask me. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's debatable, you know, but they happen to be much more, you know, affordable. And I think that's even why I think it's also termed inferior, and that's why there's that tag of Aba made. And that's why you see something that obviously is made in Aba, you see made in France, made in Paris, made in, you know, USA, because they don't want to associate with that. So, but then they happen to do their own product at a more lesser
this is it. As you said, I said earlier, I said consumer sentiment. There's what we call international demonstration effects in developmental economies. What does that mean? When we try to imitate what is happening abroad and get it in ours. Do you get it? So when you put on, you know, there is a way, sometimes you imitate people and present your own in a better form. Now, a shoe produced in Aba, you now name that shoe Shibuzo.
Anything wrong with that?
That people will make case of you. You have to look at the touche name. Cheese.
Okay.
You know, you see, when you look at, you know, you cannot remove international effect from our attitude. We have what we call acculturation, which becomes more popular in year 2000 as a result of globalization. Copying other people's culture and use it to modify your own. Did you get it? Why is it that when they call it a Reebok is not the name of someone? Adidas. Where are these? What is the origin? Names matters in demand of product. There are some products where you see it, it's a Nigerian product, but they give those product names that is commendable. There are some names you two cannot say you know.
But I disagree with that. I think that it depends on how you present yourself. Because I'm very into fashion, so that's why this is a part that I'm very particular, because some of the best fashion designers that we have, they're making use of Nigerian names, and it's very beautiful. You know, the likes of the Tubo, the likes of Vicky James, the likes of Larry da Silva Ajayi, they're using their native names, and it's so beautiful on the international platforms. Yes, Tiffany Amber. You know what? Yes, Tiffany Amber. Look at those names. Look at those Excuse me, hold on. I was going back.
You should have named it Ajangbadi.
I was going back to the fact that the Tiffany Amber and Co were in the those were the old money.
Yes.
The new crop of designers now are making use of indigenous names. So you see the Maureen dress, the Kelechi dress, and it's beautiful. Yes, I mean it. What's wrong with Kelechi?
No, I've not heard of Ayomide dress before.
I've seen it.
Even Ayomide will tell you AY dress.
No, it's the Ayomide dress, the Kelechi.
There is no absolutism.
The Ansatu dress.
There is no absolutism in everything. There's no absolutism. So I will not disagree with your point. There's no absolutism. Do you get it? But you know, in branding, do you understand? In branding, you need to understand that names goes a long way.
Okay. So I'm talking about branding. Just on a final note, I was going to ask you that what do the players in the informal sector need to do? What do they need to do to leave themselves out of this, you know, this situation and just become maybe still in the informal sector but more respected?
This is it. The informal sector needs to come together, cooperative. They need to form a cooperative. So when you form a cooperative, they have access to loan at a cheaper rate, unlike normal conventional banks. Now they need to have a voice, advocates, people that speak whenever government comes with a policy. They need people that will speak for them. They need to go to media houses such as BusinessDay who have not been sentimental in their analysis. So they need to come to a major house like BusinessDay to raise their voice. So when we see significant point they are raising, we put it into write-up and we follow up the story that government should see. An hike in interest rate affects the price of rice. Hike in interest rate affect loan facilities. It affected everything. But these people cannot influence those prices. They are affected. Wages increment. They increase wages to 70,000 naira. Who will increase their own wage? COVID-19. A lot of people who are working in the formal sector, some company paid during that COVID-19. Isn't it? So people, some company pays. Why some company will tell you, I don't have much, I slash it into two. Why? Because there's no activities. Do you get it? But those people that works in the informal sector, who take care of them? Who pay these people? Why? Because they don't have voice. So there are two major things they need to do. Cooperative, to assist each other to get access to loan at a cheaper rate. Two, they need to advocate. They need advocators. Whenever government policy is out.
But who should be this advocators?
Yes, you see, in every market they always have a leader. Right. You cannot go to a market without they have a leader. Those one will go to media houses, tell government, see what you have done, see what you have done, see this policy. How are we going to benefit from this policy? Are we not part of Nigeria? Is it because of we have less education and we are operating here that makes you to design a policy for the elite? You design policy for the elite, but the effect is on everybody. So they need to have a voice.
And speaking of these policies, and on a final note, what are some of these policies that are needed if you need to formalize the informal sector?
No, to formalize the informal sector, the first thing government needs to do, first thing, as I've said earlier, categorization of that sector. They need qualitative data driving. They need to get data. They must not based on assumption. How many large scale do we have? We need to understand so that those people that are selling ice cream in Hold Up, you not go and strangulate them again with your policy. That lady there beside you can see that lady that is doing POS there.
Absolutely.
You are not going to design product that will strangulate that kind of person. So you need to understand who are we starting with first. So when government gets the fact and the data right by classification, large, small, large, medium, small, then we can talk about policy on how to bring in the large. The large will not want to come. They will not want to come because they know government comes with a lot of bureaucratic policies. So what they need to do, you have to incentivize.
Incentives.
Okay. This is it. When you do this,
we'll give you this.
And they should live by example. So that when they get to the medium, it is the medium that will say that, please come now. Please come. So when the medium are agitating, and the medium see what's happening to the large, see the wide gap, the medium will approach government. This one now said that we're not carry, please put us there. So I think that is your stance.
All right, thank you very much, Oluwatobi Ojabello, for your time this morning on The Big Story. It was truly delightful speaking to you, and thank you for breaking that completely, very insightful conversation for us this morning. My name is Elizabeth Musa, and this has been The Big Story. Do stay with us.